repressive religious upbringing, which again, doesn't surprise anybody who has the slightest bit of common sense. You're brought up and told that something is forbidden and bad, but obviously everybody around you is interested in it because there's tons of stuff about it. So you develop a bit of a complex about it. Again, like, well, duh, you know. But that's the nature of our society. We have to run test after test and study after study to determine about things that everybody knows. Ah, God. Let's see. Every citizen to have a personal web page in Britain, right? Well, my general comment on Britain is that glad I don't live there, because it's increasingly, ever since the 80s, maybe before, I've noticed that it's just becoming increasingly, a totalitarian dictatorship, repressive society. You can't photograph anything in public. It's covered with cameras in, every public area. Don't mess with the police because they'll beat you with a nightstick for doing so. I mean, mess with them as in ask them, why are you arresting me? Why are you beating me with that stick? That'll just get you more beatings. And they're going to what? Everybody is going to give them a personalized webpage for accessing government service, which is probably, again, that's the problem, is that it makes sense to have that kind of thing. It makes sense to have a nice portal. I mean, we have that in Canada. We have, it makes sense to be able to access your government services from one efficient page. It makes sense to have your personal information in one spot that you can just replicate it to somewhere else by a push of a button. The problem, of course, is that people do a terrible job of, security-wise and otherwise, of dealing with people's personal information. And again, it's not that complicated. People have come up with lots of solutions to deal with it. It's just inefficiency and corruption, I guess. And people's comments on it were pretty good. They're just saying basically what I was saying there, just that that people have already done this. Google already gathers more information than these guys ever will, and probably more efficiency. I agree with this guy here. Yeah, I personally, I'm never going to set foot in the United States or the Britain until they, their governments and their society has a serious change back towards being, a bunch of. I mean, I felt like being in Canada, being near the States, ever since, well, after Clinton, I guess, just more and more, it felt like I was living next to Nazi Germany, Not hating on the States, but what I mean is I didn't feel safe visiting there. And that's another one. That's another one on my list here about, what was it? Some guy who did not obey the, the border crossing guards fast enough, and therefore he's going to spend 2 years in prison. Like he didn't attack them. He didn't. I think one of them choked him actually at a certain point. But it's just they were, probably hassling him. They wouldn't search him for that. And he's, he's not one of those people that just goes along super meekly. So he actually, I think he just said like, why are you doing this? Like, why am I being searched? And because he did not obey them instantly, that gives them the right to, give him a beat down and charge him with a crime. Which is, I gotta say, that's just insanity. Unless you assume that every other person is a violent, PCP-addled terrorist. If that was true, then that kind of behavior would be, appropriate, or that kind of, policy would be appropriate. But it's not true. It's just complete bunk. Here it is. Peter Watts. I think he was a sci-fi writer, actually. Canadian sci-fi writer Peter Watts. Right, was convicted of obstruction for getting out of his car at the U.S. border and asking what was going on, and then not complying fast enough when he was told to get back in the car. He faces up to 2 years in jail. Right, so, like it says here, that's apparently the statute. If you don't comply fast enough with the customs officer, he can beat you, gas you, jail you, and then imprison you for 2 years. It isn't about safety, it isn't about security, it isn't about the rule of law, it's about obedience. Exactly. It's about authoritarianism. It's about you know, obey the man, show him your papers. It's about Nazi Germany. It's about that's what it is. It's not about people. It's not about benevolent society doing what it's supposed to do. So, and again, and it's funny that the states has gotten that way over a long period of time. Well, you know what I mean. Like I'm saying, decades. Like in my lifetime, it's been almost 4 decades now. But I've seen it. Ever since the '80s, really. I mean, when I was a kid, and just the '80s were a very cyberpunky kind of cynical, kind of weird time. Not that any time is normal, but in the '90s were kind of synthetic, and then we're in the we're in the aughts. Well, we're finished the aughts. Those were just kind of surreal, really, with the whole post 9/11 thing and all that, and Bush basically ruling the states and seemingly getting away with like blatant lies and crimes every single day, which were reported in the mainstream news, but nobody did anything about it. It's just I don't know. I find being alive in the current time. I mean, it's very cool in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it's very like I don't know. It's mind-boggling. It's like president of a country can blatantly break the law of his own country. He can lie in public. Everyone can comment on it the next day, and basically say, "Gee, the president was, completely lying last night," but doesn't make any difference. He's not arrested. He doesn't have any impact on his status. Like, I just find that as a human being, I find that bizarre. But that's the way it goes. Right. Yeah, he's just saying, yeah, police state. That's the word. Yeah, exactly. A police state, it's not anything against the police, but it just means that it's an authoritarian state. Everything is clamped down. You can't, any figure that has a uniform of any sort, you better obey, because if you don't, you're going to get the nightstick. That's it's the type of state. It's the type of thing that you used to see in a dystopian movie, but that is the reality in Britain and in a lot of the states. It's not so much here in Canada, but our current government, like Harper, is kind of an evil robot. So we're definitely sliding that direction too. And it's, I vote the way I, try to against that prevailing wind, but it doesn't seem to do a lot of good. Okay, well that's that. Well, I got rid of a few. Got rid of a few. Oh, well, one last thing here. Last few minutes. Yeah, okay, 2 minutes to go. Pope failed to act on U.S. sex abuse claims. Like, that's another big, obvious / insane thing. Like the whole Catholic Church. That scandal's been going on again since I was a kid. It's like, yeah, priests are having non-consensual. They're molesting little boys. I mean, it isn't every priest. It isn't, though it is quite a few as opposed to the lone serial killer thing. And their hierarchy, their organization knows about it, and they do not punish them. They just transfer them from place to place where they can molest different kids. That's I think we had some of that in here in Canada about the native schools. I mean, again, like people in power abusing their power, people in a position of power using their power. But what I don't get is why isn't it punished? It's like it's evidence, It's like you got multiple witnesses, you got all this, but nothing, Like just I do not get that. But that's the thing, really. Just distrust authority, distrust hierarchy, distrust any large organization with a lot of power, because almost certainly the people in it who have achieved power, I mean, the people who achieve power have one goal: achieving power. They're not particularly smart. They're not particularly good at what they do necessarily. They're good at acquiring and keeping power, and that's about it. All right. Well, that's another rambling series that went by really fast. So I'll maybe do some more tomorrow. Talk to you later.